Ink Ribbon.
So a while back, I did a video taking a closer look at the ending results screens from Resident Evil, and it had a lot of views and a lot of really nice comments. So first off, thank you, because I really enjoyed making that video. But there were so many comments asking why I didn't mention the epilogue screens from Resident Evil 3, and honestly, I just forgot. But because so many of you commented about it, here I am, tidying up those loose ends. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, Resident Evil 3 featured exclusive storylines in the form of epilogue screens with a total of 8, and each one kind of gave us a glimpse into what happened to all the other characters in the franchise up until that point. Some are expected, and some are a bit surprising, but I think that adds to the realism and lore. Unlike the results screens, which were fictional depictions of events that never happened, these are the real deal and totally canon to the story. First up is Jill, wearing a business suit and giving some Scully energy. She's inside Chris's hideout, crouched down, holding his knife and looking contemplative. It's not mentioned, but you can see what appears to be a bit of blood on the floor. She doesn't stay long, leaving to find Chris as she is sure that he is still alive and probably looking to stop Umbrella. There's a lot to unpack here and it's all really nice. Well, except for the whole missing Chris thing. But Jill being at Chris's hideout implies that even though they were separated, they still stayed in touch, and he trusted her enough to tell her where he was hiding out. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jill was the only one who knew where Chris's hideout was. Chris and Jill learned that they couldn't trust anyone, even being betrayed by Chief Irons and their captain. This also leads nicely into both Resident Evil 5 and the Resident Evil 3 remake, with Jill having her own struggle to escape. Then we have Chris, who I believe the kids these days would say, has the drip. I mean, look at that outfit. He's so cool. Anyway, it's hard to tell because of the text, but Chris is at what appears to be a nice cafe, drinking either tea or coffee. He also seems to be covering his face, and just took off his sunglasses, implying he's trying to cover his face and avoid being recognized, which is understandable since there are most likely a lot of people who want him dead. A girl is passing him in the background, catching his attention and reminding him of Claire. Which brings us to the focus of his epilogue, which is his sister. The description starts with the quote, "Please forgive me, Claire," which if you remember is the closing line in Chris's diary, which shows Claire is visibly upset when she reads it. Even in her PS1 graphics, you can tell she's defeated. What's even more tragic is that in the description it says it's his signature quote, which implies that he has written that sentence a lot and feels guilty for constantly letting his sister down. After that we have Barry, holding his youngest daughter Polly, with his wife and other daughter Moira in the background. This is probably the most upbeat of all the epilogues, though it is bittersweet. Barry, reunited with his family and probably feeling very relieved that they are okay, also has to live with both the regret of betraying his teammates and the looming fear that everything that has happened in the mansion can happen again. Barry apologizes and tells them he has to go because his comrades need him. His wife gives him a fake smile and tries her best to reassure him that they will be okay, but everyone in this family knows that's far from the case. As Barry had learned, once you're in Umbrella's sights, they don't ever stop watching you. It's unclear when or where this photo is taken, but it's notable because after the events of Raccoon City, Barry took his family to an undisclosed location in Canada to lay low, and he was also keeping in touch with Chris through Claire around this time, which was before the events of Revelations 2. Either way, this reminds us that Barry was struggling with his demons, just like his teammates, but unlike Chris and Jill, he had a family that needed him. Next is Leon, who has one of the most mysterious epilogues. He's sitting in an interrogation room with an unnamed government agent who is drinking coffee. Leon implores him to leave Sherry alone, which they both know won't happen, but the man takes note of everything Leon has been through and gives him an ultimatum, specifically stating, "It's a good deal." We don't get to know what Leon responded with, but obviously he took the job, which leads directly to Leon becoming a government special agent and being assigned to rescue the president's daughter, which of course all happens during the events of Resident Evil 4. Quite the promotion for someone who was a rookie cop for one day. This was the only epilogue to ever be expanded on as well, appearing as part of a cutscene in Darkside Chronicles.
And Sherry and I,
or rescued by U.S. government agents?
We have the authority to do as we please with you. You and that girl.
Just leave her out of this. She's an innocent.
An innocent who carries the G antibody. Don't worry. We're taking very good care of her. Bottom line is, you have the experience we're looking for. So if you want this to end peacefully, you really have only one choice. Work for us.
It was later revealed that Leon made a deal that he would work as an agent for them, and in exchange, the government would guarantee Sherry's safety. After that, we have Claire, which is probably one of the most prominent epilogues and events in the series. It may seem a bit strange that Claire, in her caring nature, would suddenly just run off and leave Sherry with Leon, but that's because it wasn't the original story. It's a result of meddling by Hideki Kamiya, where one simple line drastically altered the Resident Evil timeline. And that line was,
Chris, I have to find you.
This unapproved line led to Code Veronica, which originally starred Jill, to now star Claire as the main character and cause a rewrite of the entire game in order to have Claire reunite with Chris. But all of that aside, it's a very harsh reality of an epilogue for everyone involved. One of those people, of course, is Sherry, who is being questioned by an officer about her family, which, now having lost both her parents, leaves her silent. Instead, thinking about Claire and hoping that she will come back and won't forget her. In Resident Evil 6, we learn that Sherry was living with Derek Simmons to hide out, and Claire was the only person allowed to visit her, which she did often. So at least Claire kept her promise to Sherry. It's really hard, but you have to take in the sadness and shock that Sherry must be feeling, having to mentally deal with everything that just happened to her. I mean, we know she turned out okay in Resident Evil 6, but still. Next is Ada, one of the most impactful epilogues because it's pretty much the only time we get to know what Ada is thinking. Being the jokester character in the franchise, you're never sure if she's good or evil, but here it seems to reinforce that she has more feelings than she lets on, even crying. It was always a bit ambiguous whether Ada survived or not, but this confirmed that she was still alive, even before we saw her in Resident Evil 4. What's also interesting is that she seems to be saying goodbye to the name Ada Wong, which was her alias, but I guess Capcom decided to keep it. She's also making note of her scar, courtesy of William, and a permanent reminder of the events of Raccoon City, her encounter with Leon, and most of all, her own mortality. And lastly is Hunk, safely in his evac and showing his face for the first and pretty much only time in Resident Evil. The only other time he shows his face is in an unused model from Resident Evil Outbreak, which is technically not canon, even though it is official. One other thing worth mentioning about this epilogue, which applies to Hunk in general, the first of which being the phrase that originated here, "the death cannot die," was a mistranslation, which should have been translated to something closer to "the Grim Reaper cannot die." All that aside, Hunk sits triumphantly, even smiling to himself as he thinks about how he just escaped death yet again. And that was just a nice examination of the epilogues in Resident Evil 3, some of the biggest yet underappreciated story moments from the Resident Evil lore. Let me know in the comments which one is your favorite, and also if you could add one more for any character that doesn't have one, who would you choose? I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Until next time, I'm Kai Morgan, and as always, thanks for watching Ink Ribbon. And a very special thank you to all of my Patreon supporters and YouTube members. Your extra support means the world to me and helps me keep making content for you guys.